Well, what Senator Cruz, I mean, Senator Cruz doesn't have an intimate relationship with the truth in much of his public life. I don't know him personally well enough to know beyond that. But the fact is that every time a senator stands up and speaks, there is a Senate stenographer about 6 feet away, and senators that don't wear masks are putting them at risk. I mean, I know that Ted Cruz doesn't see the Senate stenographer because she is it's always a she in these cases, is one of those essential workers that usually doesn't get paid a lot of money and exposes themselves, those essential workers, to the public, and then goes home anxious at night about it potentially infecting their families. But I mean, Ted Cruz doesn't see workers generally, and particularly essential workers. And that's what I'm in the Senate for, the dignity of work and fighting for those workers. That's why I said that. They were 6 feet away. But more importantly is these people that work in the Senate and people that are essential workers, bus drivers, people that prepare food, people that change hospital linen, grocery store workers, those are pretty much the forgotten people in this pandemic. Congress isn't looking out for them. No $600 a week unemployment when they're laid off. No help to stay in their homes. No help for their school, for their kids in public schools. Instead, it's political pronouncements that wearing a mask is some political statement that only the far left does. And I don't even understand. History will look weird pretty badly on this whole mask thing, that it's dividing the parties. I mean, it makes no sense. They would have, yeah, they would have helped a tiny bit. But here's the real story. Back in March, we voted unanimously for a generous package that made a big difference. It kept, according to the Pew Charitable Trust Foundation, I guess it kept 12 million Americans out of poverty. It essentially expired in July and August. Congress did nothing. Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, President Trump said they didn't see any, they didn't feel any urgency to do anything. So every day in Ohio and Texas and everywhere in between and around the country, thousands of people fall into poverty. Speaker Pelosi wanted to do a big package. Then she said, okay, a little smaller, then a little smaller. Republicans offered very little, nothing close to $600 a week, keeping people out of poverty, nothing for emergency rental assistance, very little for public schools so they could open in person, nothing for local government, something for small business, but not enough. And then they simply adjourned and said, sorry, no, we want to come back. Instead of coming back to vote on a hack for the Federal Reserve, which the Senate actually defeated today, and a bunch more judges, that's what McConnell brings us back for, exposing workers to this virus. Instead, we should be quickly negotiating a package that will matter to get people through this cold winter, to get people through this pandemic so they have a fighting chance. Well, because something was so little, something was a little bit, but we were always hopeful that the pressure of the election on President Trump. Trump said, "Let's do something bigger." Then he changed his mind and he was back and forth. But we were hoping and still do for something significant enough to make a real impact the way it did back in March. I mean, it made a huge impact, 12 million people out of poverty. And since then, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And Republicans don't want to, half the Republican caucus has said they don't want to do $1, they want to do zero. So we know that Republicans want to do just a minimal amount to get through the election and then essentially nothing. We hope they'll do something now. If they don't, we come back with something significant with the new Biden administration, but we hope they do it now. We ought to be in session right now doing that instead of voting to put a political hack on the Federal Reserve, another Trumpster.